Big Mo. Oh, man.
Are you gonna keep boxing?
Yeah.
You really love this shit, huh?
Did with Logan Paul, melting down in front of the cameras while his brother was being carried out with a shattered jaw. And that's the part nobody was ready for. So snap back with me, because before the knockout, before silence, before the panic, this was sold as destiny, as control, as the Paul brothers rewriting boxing. And nah, this can't be real unless you accept that the final damage wasn't the punch. It was the exposure, the kind that rips a brandipin and leaves everyone scrambling. And I'm telling you right now, the fallout you saw was only the surface. And something
Then he broke my brother's jaw. Fuck this guy. Broke his jaw, huh? Yeah, he split his jaw. Yeah. He don't care though. Jake's having a fucking blast.
uglier is sitting underneath, waiting to break. Everyone keeps replaying the knockout. But I'm stuck on the moment right after, because that's when the illusion actually died, because Logan wasn't calm. He wasn't composed. He wasn't protective. He was furious, and that rage wasn't aimed at Joshua. It was aimed inward at Jake, at the plan, at the story that was supposed to end differently. And ask yourself why a brother reacts like a manager whose investment just collapsed, because that reaction tells you more truth than any press conference ever.
It was largely because he was mostly running away from AJ rather than standing toe-to-toe with him to fight. It's the difference between fighting a Bengal tiger and running away from a Bengal tiger.
Ever could. And I don't think we've heard the full story yet. Not even close. Before the fight, the confidence already felt reckless, because Logan was talking like the result was pre-written, calling Joshua washed, calling him beatable, calling him a legacy ender target. And when you speak like that, you're not hyping your gambling reputation. And here's where the tension spikes, because Logan tied his own image to Jake's fist. And once that bell rang, there was no separating brotherhood from branding. And the second Jake started backing up, you could feel the plan unraveling in real time. The warnings were everywhere, and everyone ignored them on purpose, because analysts kept saying influencer boxing ends where heavyweight reality begins. But noise drowned out caution. Clicks drowned out truth. And when Joshua stood patient and cold, you could see it on Jake's face. Stiff legs, tight shoulders, eyes searching for exits.
Since he quickly realized fighting AJ was not going to work for him, he naturally began incorporating even more flight, running away, and freezing, falling to the ground at any chance he had, just to survive the rounds.
I mean, all it's doing is buying Jake Paul more time. I don't like it at all.
Do you remember what Mike Tyson famously said? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Anthony Joshua's gigantic. He's so big. He's so much bigger. So of course, like, his punch that he knocks Tyron Woodley out cold with, Joshua just eats it.
Yeah.
Because he's a giant.
Yeah.
He's a fucking giant man.
And suddenly this wasn't about confidence or belief. It was about survival. And that shift is where careers quietly die before the knockout even. Then the knockdown started and belief drained fast, because 4 times is not bad luck. It's confirmation. And when a man gets dropped that many times, the fight stops being competitive and starts being instructional. And at 131 of round 6, it was done. Not debated.
I'm so proud of him. My mom has it.
Your brother fought his ass off, man. I mean, other heavyweights have taken that right hand and only took one.
I'm just so proud of him. That was incredible. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts.
Not controversial, just finished. And that silence that followed wasn't shock. It was recognition. The sound of hype collapsing under physics. And I swear there's a reason the cameras immediately found Logan instead of the replay. The numbers made it worse, and you know it, because 16 punches landed out of 56 isn't bravery, it's a racer. And when the injury report dropped saying double broken jaw surgery,
Like, minus the actual victory, of course, but bro, like, no one expected him to last 6 rounds with AJ. In my opinion, he won 4 of them. People will argue that he at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness.
required the conversation should have ended. But it didn't, because the real chaos was emotional, because as Jake was carried out, Logan lost control. And that wasn't just worry. That was embarrassment, panic, anger, all colliding. And tell me why nobody is asking what was said off camera, right? Then Logan in that moment was uncomfortable because it didn't look like love, it looked like betrayal, like someone had ruined the script without permission, and that's why commentators flinched because this wasn't concern. This was damage control panic in HD, and when your trash talk gets replayed next to knockout footage, you don't get to reframe it later. And here's a teaser that keeps bothering me because that rage didn't look spontaneous. It looked bottled up. Arty.interview.5.25/5.30 backstage reports made it darker because shaking, shouting.
This YouTuber who's fought Tommy Fury, who's a legit boxer, and a couple other guys that were legit boxers. That's it. Like everyone else he's fought Ben Askren, who's really a wrestler. He fought Tyron Woodley, who was an elite MMA fighter, but not an elite boxer.
Pacing doesn't come from a single punch. It comes from realization. The realization that the Paul experiment hit a wall it can't spin past. And when people say Logan kept replaying the moment, that tells you he was trying to rewrite it mentally because the real-world version wasn't acceptable. And no, this can't be real unless the stakes were way higher than a win or lost.
And there's some sort of a rehydration clause. Listen, kids, it ain't gonna matter. There's not a chance that Anthony Joshua is not going to just lose the weight beforehand. He's not going to come in drained. What he's going to do is just do extra.
Tone shift was almost comical because suddenly it was logical conclusion. Skill gap, respect, toughness, gratitude. And that's what happens when bravado fails because revision starts immediately. But the internet doesn't forget. And those earlier words, legacy, ender, echo louder after the fact. And that's why this hit harder because the calm sounded rehearsed. And the panic was the truth. The family angle is...
I think the camp wasn't 100%. Is that accurate?
That's kind of what I was going to ask. Like, do you feel like it was your best camp?
No, I mean, just because, I was weighing 200 pounds when we confirmed the fight.
Is what poisoned this deeper because Logan needed Jake to win not for boxing history, but for image stability. And when Jake fell, the foundation shook because this brand runs on control and confidence and spectacle. And losing control on the biggest stage fractures everything. And ask yourself, Logan looked less like a brother and more like a furious executive watching millions disappear.
I was right there. I don't know if you heard me.
Yeah, I did.
I was like, you wobbled him, go.
Disappear because that question leads somewhere uncomfortable. People laugh at the meltdown clips, but I see something else. I see a warning flare because when ego gets louder than preparation, the sport always collects payment. And heavyweight boxing doesn't do refunds. And this fight didn't just expose Jake, it exposed the ecosystem that pushed him there.
To get that world-class gas tank, you need a Sam Calavita, you need a Nick Curson, you need these plyometrics experts that who've got heart rate monitors on you, and they're checking when your recovery is ready and go.
Yeah.
And you're fucking yeah. You need guys monitoring your recovery, monitoring your heart rate variability, your VO2 max.
And here's another time bomb thought. Because if this was allowed once, it'll be attempted again by someone watching right now. Interview.7.53759. Anthony Joshua didn't need to say anything because the aftermath spoke for him, because skill be noise and experience crushed confidence. And fact clean.
You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division.
The line between influencer boxing and elite heavyweight reality was drawn in blood and panic. And once lines like that are drawn, they don't fade, they harden. And I don't think the Paul brothers fully grasp how permanent that is. Yet. Interview.8.28.43. The scariest part is how fast
timing in that right hand, just spectacular.
That's stepping in as well.
Over the top. I mean, that was a full force shot to the temple. I mean, he's Fucksville right now.
So don't.
Everything unraveled. Because this wasn't a slow fall, it was instant. From bravado to silence, from controlled touchouts. And that speed tells you how fragile the structure really was. And when structures crack this publicly, more pieces usually fall later, and I keep wondering which piece drops next because something still feels. Unresolved .9.049.20 interview. This will be remembered for the knockout. Everyone says. However, that is incorrect since it will be remembered for the reality. The anger, the fear, and the exposure were all captured on camera. Because of this, the narrative will not die, because it wasn't planned. It wasn't tidy, and brands detest messy reality more than failures. And reality came out on top.9.39.9.51 interview. Therefore, don't give up because this isn't finished, because the damage isn't just physical. And the silence now feels like someone is buying time before another shoe drops. When stories suddenly stop talking, it usually means that something is being negotiated, buried, or hidden. And I don't trust it at all because the next update won't be about boxing at all. And when it does, it will hit hard. In my view, this incident not only shattered the Paul story, but it also irrevocably distorted it. Because once the public witnesses unadulterated fear rather than practiced assurance, they are unable to completely erase it. Furthermore, Logan's breakdown was a revelation rather than a lapse, the kind that reveals the amount of pressure concealed behind the bluster. Because the response would have been quieter, softer, protecting rather than sharp, volatile and defensive, as if something precious had just been lost, if this had merely been about brotherly concern. Additionally, I believe that people are underestimating the severity of the psychological harm because the ego can survive being knocked out by Anthony Joshua. However, witnessing your brand's narrative collapse in real time is a new kind of pain. Because it had nothing to do with the battle, Logan's rage felt excessive. It has to do with losing control, and the lifeblood of their whole business is control. Everything begins to sway without it. What truly strikes with me is how, in a matter of minutes, the discussion shifted from performance to behavior to image, nearly making the fight itself seem insignificant. And that indicates that the athletic result was already implicitly accepted since. The attention shifts to repercussions once a conclusion seems inevitable. Furthermore, no rankings nor rematches were the outcome in this case. It was a loss of credibility, which is much more difficult to repair than a winning column. The composed remarks that followed don't seem to indicate acceptance, in my opinion. They represent containment, in my opinion, because when the tone shifts so quickly, it usually indicates that advisors, managers, and attorneys intervene to stop the damage. Furthermore, the issue with freezing damage is that it verifies the existence of something to confine in the first place. Additionally, audiences are more intelligent than marketers realize. They can detect that change right away. Nobody wants to publicly state that Jake lost not only to Joshua, but also to the pressure Logan put on him. Because the fighter ceases to be an athlete and turns into a vessel when a bout turns into a referendum on family image. Additionally, under pressure, veins fracture, and we saw that. Overload, not weakness or timidity. Additionally, I firmly believe that this situation will deteriorate rather than improve with time. People will refer to this as the warning video, the night confidence met consequences, when future influencer fighters attempt to step up. Additionally, the lesson, that hype doesn't fail quietly, will be reinforced with each repetition of Logan's response. It explodes, and long after the roar stops, detonations leave behind debris. Because the sport profited financially while the participants paid both physically and psychologically, there's something extremely unsettling about the blurring of entertainment and danger in this situation. And viewers begin to wonder about morality when that disparity becomes apparent. Furthermore, moral dilemmas persist after they are introduced into combat sports narratives, particularly when the wounds are this obvious, they linger like smoke. Additionally, I don't think this ends with Jake stepping away, since quiet won't drown out what has already gone viral, and stepping away doesn't erase the footage, comments, memes, or think pieces. Because humans tend to overcorrect when they lose narrative control, the following chapter feels erratic. In this area, overcorrections typically indicate something noisy. The most concerning thing to me is how commonplace the language of survival has become. because commending survival rather than competitiveness indicates a change in expectations. Additionally, the sport becomes more about endurance theater than it is about quality once standards are compromised, and that's a steep slope. Boxing has failed in the past, and history indicates that it always regrets it afterwards. Ultimately, I believe that this wasn't just a terrible game or a bad night. The public failure of the Paul experiment was a stress test that removed the layers of confidence and irony. And what remains after those layers come off is so delicate and human, and everyone can now see that vulnerability. This implies that whatever occurs next will be viewed differently, scrutinized more severely, and forgiven much less.